Okay, so I have the Supreme Court case Roper versus Simmons. Who is Christopher Simmons? Simmons was abused both mentally and physically by his alcoholic stepfather at a young age, and because of the abuse he suffered, psychologists say that there's a great chance that he could have been mentally ill. A combination of the abuse and possible anxiety problems led him down an unruly path. He became addicted to drugs and alcohol at an early age. Crime summary. On September 9th, 1993, 17-year-old Simmons was arrested for the murder of Shirley Crook. Simmons joined with two friends planned to rob Crook's house and then murder her. Then only one of his friends ended up following through with the plan. Crook was found that day in a riverbed tied with electrical cord, duct tape, and leather straps. After further investigation, it was proved that she died from drowning. Facts about the crime. Before this day, Simmons had no previous criminal records, and then after committing the crime, he went around bragging about what he had done to a bunch of his friends. Consequences. The respondent was taken into custody and ended up confessing to the crime, and then he was put on trial as an adult, convicted, and sentenced to death. His death sentence was very controversial because he was only 17 when he committed the crime, and the fact that he could be put to death when he committed the crime as a minor was questionable. The constitutional issue was that they were wondering if it's permissible under the 8th and 14th Amendments to execute an offender who was under the age of 18 when they committed the crime. And then the American justice system is founded on fundamental principles. So they believe that capital punishment is reserved for the worst offenders. And by nature, juveniles are much less mature than adults. During this time in their lives, cognitive abilities, emotions, judgments, and even the brain are still developing, so they don't believe that during this stage you could be a worst offender. The Supreme Court stated that capital punishment must be limited to those offenders who commit a narrow category of the most serious crimes and whose extreme culpability makes them the most deserving of execution. And then they decided that juvenile executions violated the 8th Amendment's provision against cruel and unusual punishment under the Evolving Standards of Decency test. And then the Evolving Standards of Decency test is a test where courts examine prevailing opinions amongst state legislators, sentencing juries, judges, scholars, the public, and the international community to determine whether a particular application of the death penalty is cruel. And as you can see, minors do not have a fully developed and matured brain until they're 18 or even 20. And then the significance of the case, a heavy punishment such as the death penalty cannot be taken lightly, and after a lot of careful thought, the court decided that juvenile execution is not morally just or constitutionally acceptable. Because of this ruling, 72 people who had committed crimes before the case were taken off of death row, mostly in Texas. And then this case made it so that many adolescents in the future will not be sentenced to death. It also set a standard for any cases similar to this one that happen in the future.